We're now broadcasting.
Hello, welcome everybody to the Community Interactions meeting today. You're joined by me, Mr. Isola, Mr. Sanisak, Mrs. Engel, Donna, Committee Chair, Ira Thor, Mark Bongiovanni, Ira Thor. Am I missing anybody? Heather Arado as well, I believe.
Ms. Fernandez is on. I don't know if you said her
Mrs.
name.
Fernandez is on.
Yep. The senior admin team is with us. Yep.
So we're going to just kind of go through the overview. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Isola to start it off, so we're not repetitive, so we can kind of get to everybody's questions.
Great.
And we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I appreciate your time tonight and, providing this forum for our community. I just want to check with our moderator to make sure are the people in, or are they still coming in? Or
We're at 42 right now.
okay, so we have people joining us as we speak. Everyone who registered was able to get in. We had the capacity, so nobody was shut out, which is great news. And certainly what we want to do is give an overview of everything COVID and talk to our community directly about, where we find ourselves in the reopening process and why we find ourselves there. And I'm sure there's going to be, some questions once we're done. But I thought with the chair's permission, I'd just give an overview of where we're at. Is that good with you, Ms. Mangano?
Yep,
Great.
yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so first thing that comes to mind is, why are we announcing the 1.5, which talks about combining the A and B cohorts for Monday and Tuesday and Thursday and Friday, a 4-day in-school opportunity for students, as opposed to moving through the plan that we talked about back in August at the board meetings and with the town and certainly the Department of Education. And in all of those conversations, we always spoke about we would have a responsive reopening plan, meaning we'd be responsive to the information that's available to us, how we were doing with our reopening, and of course, to the needs of this community, never compromising the health and safety of students and staff, right? So a lot of things have happened. We've been at this for over a month now. Excited to report. Actually, is today the 10th? I believe today's the 12th. So over a month. I got my dates mixed up, but we've been at this for over a month, 2 days over a month. And I'm really pleased with how things are progressing in terms of in school. We'll talk about outside factors momentarily, but just to be very transparent and open and honest about what we have found, we have dealt with 3 positive cases in that month. One of them was a very isolated situation that did not really spill into the school beyond one person and in the second person being in contact. It was an isolated situation. The other 2 cases, one at Gribbling, as you know, the first one, and then the other one that took place at Aldridge School. We were really, the Gribbling was the first. It was one of the first in the county, quite frankly. I think we were the second school district to deal with it in Monmouth County that I can recall. I think our good friends at Little Silver were ahead of us, and then it was us. But we went through that process and we learned a lot. And I think the big news there is because of our protocols and the mechanisms that we have built into place, we were able to avoid any kind of additional or collateral cases. We had no outbreak, no additional cases. There was one other person on that contact line that also tested positive, but they had already been quarantined. So the school community did not have any kind of extensive or even minor outgrowth of COVID-19 cases based on the way we dealt with it and the good systems that are in place. So then that was the Gribbling one. Then we had the Aldridge one. And we really had this system in place at that point where we were able to go through it with Mr. Smith and his team and get through it pretty quickly. And again, no additional cases, just the one confirmed positive that caused the situation to go into the quarantining. And again, very proud to report that working with the health department, our district doctor, Ms. Fernandez and Mr. Sanisak, who kind of work in concert on these things, did a great job in making sure we we mitigated any opportunity for spread, and really glad to say that that was the case in both of our in-school situations. So that's great news. So in our rollout of the reopening plan, we always talk about looking at the situation at once we get going and being responsive to the situation. We even talked about skipping a step perhaps, or building in another step, or even sometimes maybe having to go reverse, right? If we open and then situations happen. So we always talked about the plan not being in concrete, fluid and responsive with the words we often used. And that stands true tonight, you know. So that's part of the reason why we deviated. And where did we deviate to? We deviated to that 4-day program, still abbreviated schedule. And I'll just be frank, and you know, those that want to call, you know, me a coward, go ahead and do it. I'm just not comfortable and cannot recommend to the board or to any other team member that we have confidence we can do lunch correctly. And that's, you know, certainly alarming. Physical education, certainly, you know, the level of activity that exists, you know, some of the special areas where there's collaboration at high levels, harder environments to control. I just felt that bringing the cohorts together gave us a greater chance to expose children to more in-person instruction while maintaining safe and healthy environments. So I know that a lot of people would ask the question, and I'm looking here at my list to make sure I cover it. You know, what about the physical distancing rule of 6 foot? I know that's, you know, a large topic in people's minds, and, you know, Mrs. Mangano and Mr. Bongiovanni, myself, we've had numerous conversations this week, and you know, certainly Ms. Mangano and I kind of said, you know, it depends what day of the week it is, how I feel, whether we're ready or not, right? You know, and that's the reality, that there is so much information coming, and everyone wants to do what's right, but we all recognize that kids belong in school. It's really a good environment for children. So when we talk about this physical distancing, the road back is the document that the Department of Education published for reopening safely, and it talks clearly about students and staff should maintain 6 foot physical distancing to every extent possible. So it does not say that it's mandatory or required. It's good practice. When we worked with our school doctor, our school physician, we talked about, you know, what's the magic in 6 feet? He said the magic is in 20 feet and 10 feet. That's best, right? So when you get to 6 feet, we feel confident as a medical community that that distance is more than enough to prevent or the spread, or certainly mitigate it. The two largest factors, mask wearing and physical distancing. Those are the two biggest factors, according to our medical community and our health department, about mitigating spread and contraction of the COVID-19. So when I spoke to the doctor, you know, he said, Mr. Isola, 10 feet is better than 8 feet, 8 feet is better than 6 feet, 5 feet is better than 4 feet, 4 feet is better than 2 feet. You know, at what point does it happen? So if you're at 5.5 feet, are you at risk? Are you at danger? Well, you're not as comfortable as you would be at 8 feet. But certainly if you're maintaining distance you know, at one point there was a report 3 feet was the magic thing, and that changed. And, you know, so there's a lot of moving parts in there. Based on the number of students who are virtual and the students that are coming in physically as it relates in person, as it relates to the physical distancing, we think in most cases, we will be able to maintain very close to 6 feet. And in areas that we won't, we find confidence in the road back document, and speaking with Dr. Moulet, our school physician, that if the people in the room are masked, that coupled with good distancing, there is not a very heightened level of risk for exposure or for transmission. Again, not 6 foot is the recommended, but to every extent possible. And if we put masks on and face students all in the same direction, so there's not cross you know, conversations happening, we're doing a good work and feel confident that kids would remain safe. We'll talk a little while about the impact to education, and Mr. Preston will probably speak to that a little bit. So physical distancing is a big topic, but based on what I just talked you through, there's a level of confidence that we will have sound distancing between all the students. And there could be cases where they're inside 6 feet, but they're not going to be on top of each other. They'll still be spaced and facing the same direction with masks. So there's a level of confidence around that decision. Another big topic that we're going to talk about tonight, and I'm sure there'll be questions about, is the opportunity to transition from virtual to in-person, from in-person to virtual. Our original plan was very clear when we published it. It was going to be the trimester. When we reworked some things, even before the start of school, and students were to live on the rosters of every teacher, so a teacher had their own roster, took care of their virtual and their in-school cohorts. It gave us some flexibility, and we migrated away from that and said within a 2-week window, a child can transition, but no longer than 2 weeks from in-person to virtual and virtual to in-person. Now that we have combined cohorts starting next week in the elementary schools, we're going to revert back to the transition date for moving again from virtual to in-person to be the end of the first trimester, which would be December 4th. If you are in person and for any reason you need to migrate out of in-person into virtual, we're going to leave that as soon as possible, but no greater than 2 weeks. So coming in is going to be a hold because we got to see our spacing, make sure the desks are in place. We have to get furniture moved, and we just don't want to, we want to build confidence and make sure we can handle what it is we're actually launching come next week. So that's why we're reverting back to and pausing the influx from virtual to in-person. However, if you find yourself uncomfortable with the in-person instruction and you feel more comfortable being in a virtual setting, you can make that determination as a family for the student, and that child then would be transitioned again as soon as possible, but no greater than 2 weeks back into the virtual or into the virtual setting. Mr. Sanisak will be available later to answer any questions regarding transportation. Transportation was always designed, the routes were designed for all the students. Students are required to wear masks on the bus. We do our best to physically distance on the bus, one person to a seat, unless they're from the same household, then they can sit together. Again, the road back document from the Department of Education is very clear. To whatever extent possible, with masks being worn on the bus at all times. That was always the rule. And between the virtual students and parent drop-off and pickup, which has been increased during the COVID-19 launch here or situation that we're dealing with, we're seeing not full ridership on the buses. Do I think the A and B cohort will raise that number? You know, we have some buses dropping off 5, 6, 7 kids right now. Do I think that can go to 14, 15? And I think on a full-size bus, Ron, is it 21 students if we put one per seat?
22.
22 students can fit one per seat, which is a pretty good effort in terms of, because the chairs are pretty high. Again, it's almost a built-in shield. But again, if it's greater than 22, there will have to be some students sitting in the same seat. Obviously, first 2 in the 3-seaters, and then, but again, we think that we'll be able to maintain, limited numbers on the bus. It wouldn't be like the old school with, 50 or 40 something kids on the bus. Could that happen? Yes. But based on the virtual students and parent drop off and pickup, we don't think our buses will be at capacity. But most of the rides are fairly reasonable in their timing, and the mask will help with that. So transportation is going to proceed as always. The routes are designed. Mr. Sanisak and his team are ready to move along with that. And Ms. Fernandez will be able to speak more to this if there's questions. The next topic here, which is the daily health screening and the parent compact and what it means if a child is symptomatic. I wrote in the letter and 1 or 2 people questioned what that was about. And what I wrote was, we're going to have to really up the ante a little bit here in terms of our diligence with the health screening. Now, that doesn't suggest people aren't doing it, but here's the reality. if we want to proceed forward as a school community and increase safely and with health and the well-being of our staff and our students, as the priority, you're going to have to realize as parents and as staff members, employees, we can't be sending or coming to work or sending to school for the parents folks that are perhaps symptomatic or perhaps exposed, right? So we have to really acknowledge that while you may think it's allergies, and it very well may be, if you have a headache and sniffles and runny eyes, you're staying home and you're going to be quarantined from school for 14 days. You'll have to work 10 days from symptoms. I apologize. You'll have to work in the virtual setting. That is to preserve and safeguard what it is we're trying to accomplish, educating in the best environment possible and maintaining health and safety for all. So I don't like that, no doubt about it. I wish kids can come to school, but we've always asked students and staff that weren't feeling well to stay home. School's a place that could spread easily because of the close quarters in normal settings. So we want to make sure we're being respectful to the daily health screening and that you're monitoring your children every day and your students. And you as adults who are coming to work, like myself, if you're not feeling well, you need to stay home and prevent the spread. And if you're symptomatic, you need to report that and perhaps do school or work in the remote setting to every extent possible. It's not ideal, but that will help us keep each other safe and healthy and continue along our reopening process, which I don't think there's a person, I think everybody wants, more schooling to every extent possible. There's certainly a debate over when and how, but there's no debate that we all hope for this normal environments to return. And while we're not on the doorstep of those yet, this is a step forward that can start to return a sense of normality. And look, I said this in a letter too. I think we have kids struggling right now, being out of school so much. And I think school is a place that is really good for students' mental wellness and social and emotional awareness and learning. We want kids in school if we can do it safely. And again, we have that level of confidence as we speak right now about that. So there's certainly a lot of factors out there. So I know that we're talking about maintaining 4 days, and I'm trying to do this as concisely and as possible. I know it's been a while already, but it's an important conversation, or at least this monologue is important to spur good conversation. Wednesdays are remaining remote, and the reason why they're going to remain remote right now is it absolutely will provide us that good day of intense cleaning that the B&G folks are doing, but it also helps us with a break in the week. In the event that there is a case or exposure, we can help with the contact tracing. We can have that data reset in the middle of the week. There's a lot of byproducts that come along with that as a good practice. It's been helpful to date in terms of that. And yes, we want to continue to do the right educational work on Wednesdays. Mr. Preston will be here to speak more in detail about that should that question arise. And we're talking about asynchronous and synchronous learning, these buzzwords that are out there that we all became familiar with. But at the end of the day, we're working currently towards increasing staff and student engagement in the afternoons and on Wednesdays. So in both cases, we're in the planning process to build that. Now that would still happen remotely, both on Wednesdays and in the PM section of everyone's day. But as we get comfortable, and remember, we've been at this for a month, it seems like a long time, but this is very new practice. So as we become comfortable and we build confidence and we get good at what we're doing, we start to increase that engagement with those opportunities as well. Again, Mr. Preston can speak more in depth about that topic as we break out shortly. In terms of, and I had this conversation with a lovely family today, in terms of hearing that, how we'll close the parks and there's upticks in Monmouth and Ocean, and certainly up in Passaic and Bergen. So why now are you making the move? I draw your attention to the nightly news where New York State is using those kind of like those maps, those heat looking like maps where they have hot zones and different colors. Well, New Jersey also does what New York does. And Monmouth County currently, and has been for weeks now, either green or yellow. Green meaning low risk, and yellow is certainly moderate. As you get more into the orange and the red, that's where it becomes high. And in New York, for example, and you see Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio speaking about red zones where they're shutting schools and closing non-essential businesses. You know, we're nowhere near that. Did we move? In the last few weeks, we went from green to yellow, back to green. And I think the last 2 weeks we've been yellow again. But the rates are not at alarming rates. Any increase is not good. We want to watch that. And I wrote specifically in my communication to our community, in the event that we watch these current events and we're unable to do it, we will pause and not launch. At the last board meeting, there was a lot of conversation about setting a date for the next step. So in response to the community's desire to know when and where we're moving, we communicated our plan. We think we have, a good shot at doing this. We have confidence in what we're talking about. But the truth of the matter is, I will not, and I want to be clear that everyone understands Mr. Isola on this topic, I will not make a decision because of pressure from anything other than we think it's the right thing to do and we can protect kids and staff. And if we can do that, I think we should proceed. If we have a lack in confidence in that, regardless of what social media is saying, regardless of, what the loudest person in the room that yells says, it has to be something that we have confidence in. Today, I feel a fairly good level of confidence that we'll be ready to go next Monday in our elementary and primary buildings with the combined cohort. Now, if something, today, Monday, the health department was closed, so I didn't get my update today, but I'm sure I'll be able to find one tomorrow, or get that pushed to me tomorrow. And if I see something alarming and we're going from yellow to orange, well, let's pump the brakes. Let's not be, this is not a competition to who can open first. What this is providing educational environments for students where our educational community is safe and healthy, and then the best opportunity for educational success, right? So I think we're on that path. While I'm watching closely what's happening in Monmouth County, and it is, a little concerning. It's not the alarm level yet on my radar. Again, we have really good information from our partners at Monmouth County Health Department. Of course, our medical advice that's coming from our district's physician, and we're watching closely. But we wanted to make sure the community had awareness of where we're going. What do I envision happening next? Right? There's been some questions about, well, what's the next move? I think the next move would be the natural progression. That's today. Again, information could change. Going from 4 to 5 days eventually would be the next trigger. Boom. We can hit that once we have confidence and we're doing okay. We see that we can manage the cohorts and Mr. Sanasak has all the cleaning and the transportation, down, and he's confident in that. We're getting good information from our parents and guardians on the self-reporting and not sending children to work sick. Our staff's following good protocols and not coming to work. And when we get that high level of confidence, then we talk about what happens next. So that's where we're at. I know that was a little bit long, probably longer than I anticipated, but I thought it was important to give the whole story. Again, the team is on here to answer questions that we're going to open up to the public. But first, Ms. Mangano, I'm going to turn it back to you so we can deal with conversation or dialogue among the committee. As always, it's the committee's meeting. And then at your level of comfort, we'll open it up to our audience.
Okay. So you pretty much, gave the basic breakdown of what's going to be going on. Hopefully we can stay into this pattern and move forward. Does anybody have any questions on the panel before I ask any questions?
Chrissy, I have a couple. Um,
Go ahead.
Mr. Isola, are there any schools with the combining of the cohort where you have any concerns that we may have trouble keeping the social distancing recommendations? I know 6 feet's recommended. There might be situations where it's 4 or 5 instead of 6 or 8. But are there any schools where you do have some concern?
So, and not to be, elusive here at all, Mr. Thor, I'm concerned about all the buildings, right? We go in with the concern for our students and our staff. But with that being stated, I do think in all of the buildings, we'll be able to put sound distance, again, inside 6 feet in some cases for sure, but the kids will not be on top of each other, and they'll be able to maintain distance. They'll have the desk in the same direction, and they'll be wearing masks. We think that will, again, based on the information we're getting from our partners, we believe that would allow us to safely return students and mitigate the spread.
Thank you.
Or
And
flow.
I do appreciate obviously the fact that we are taking this next step forward. I know 1.5 wasn't on the original plan,
Right.
but you have to be able to pivot in an ever-changing world, which is what we're going through right now. I know Wednesday is a major concern. Clearly, it's been a topic on social media, but even if people aren't talking about it online, it's something that's being discussed in probably every household in our district where they have school-age children. What are you looking for right now to be able to go to the 5-day cohort after we go to the 4-day? What would be the guidelines, the key benchmarks really that you want to see before we go to 5 days? Because, speaking as the father of a first grader, and I'm sure that I'm echoing the thoughts of many, many parents throughout our district, Wednesdays are extraordinarily hard.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're getting anything out of it, to be frank, as a father. I'm not sure Wednesdays are very productive.
All this time, I thought your name was Ira, and now you're going with Frank, but that's okay. You'll forgive me, Mr. Thor. I think that's a fair question. There's been a lot of, dialogue. Now, remember, Wednesdays are only happening once a week, so I think we've had 3, and maybe this will be our 4th. And I anticipate that we're working closely with our staff and our supervisory staff to support the building needs. What it is providing, and I'm going to turn to Mr. President in just a second, is opportunities that maybe not every household is seeing, such as small group instruction, intervention services, CST meetings, and things of that nature that are providing opportunities for kids that the general setting generally doesn't. So, but to your question, I'm envisioning as I sit here, and I've already pivoted once with the 1.5, we kind of said kiddingly today, is the 1.5, I should say, is there 1.75 before we get to 2, right? We don't know that, because until we're in the environment and living it, just like I said at the board meeting last month, I don't want to set a fictionary hurdle to jump over, and then people say, oh, you said if there was no more cases, you'd be full day by this date. There's so many more layers of complexity in the decision making and balancing the needs of our community, our staff, our students. There's so many things that go into it. What I can tell you is I envision the rest of this month, and into Thanksgiving's a little bit of a challenging month, because we have we have the 2 days at the beginning of the month that are generally closed with a conference, which will remain closed. And then we have the Thanksgiving weekend, which is a 4-day. So we have 2 4-day weekends. There's generally not a lot of instructional days in a normal, typical Thanksgiving. So I think that we're going to look at, the remainder of this month and well into November to kind of gauge where we're at, make sure, right, because now we will have more kids in the building regularly. We want to make sure we're not putting them at risk. But certainly I see at least a good, like we did the first time, a month into this process. I don't see me pivoting to 5 days from 4 days to at least a month into this new plan, which puts us right around Thanksgiving. So I would probably be talking about the end of November, which at that point puts us December 4th is the marking period, but with an announcement around Thanksgiving, probably for the launch for 5 days, if all is well, for the second trimester. Again, I don't want to hurry up and get it wrong, right? I want to make sure we can get this done correctly and safely. And while there's a lot going on, I'm going to turn to Mr. Preston to talk about some of the work he's doing with our team, with our staff. He works so closely with so many staff members in terms of what Wednesdays look like, and even the afternoons on the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So Bruce?
Yeah, thank you. So, a couple of things. It's a lot like Mr. Isola was saying. We have to put things in place, then see how they're working, reflect on those, and then make our changes and continue the process. And we're doing that in as short of a cycle as we can possibly do that. So part of that is looking at Wednesdays and looking at the afternoons to say how much is too much asynchronous work, how much is not enough asynchronous work. And we've gotten emails speaking to both sides of those continuum, of that continuum. So what we're doing now is looking at how might we be able to provide more, say, Wednesday and afternoon supplemental synchronous time. I'm going to add in a new term. Sorry. The idea being, can we look at the cycle classes, special areas, related arts, which are meeting completely asynchronous, and start to provide an opportunity for those teachers and students to meet together on a regular basis. We're looking at that. We're hitting some scheduling snafus right now, things that we just have to work our way through. I'll be on another meeting with supervisors tomorrow to kind of discuss some of those topics. And again, how might we be able to create more opportunities without stepping over each other? Because, right, if I'm pulling a group of students on a Wednesday and you're pulling a group of students on the Wednesday, and while we're on the same time, we're creating a conflict. Meanwhile, throughout the district, we're also running child study team meetings on those Wednesdays, et cetera. So we got to make sure that we're scheduling everything thoughtfully so that students aren't pulled in multiple directions, going sort of from, I think, famine to feast, perhaps in this scenario. But also that staff aren't pulled in too many directions and that they can provide the kind of instruction necessary on those days. So we do recognize that Wednesdays are not perfect. Despite the amazing efforts of the staff, there are some scheduling structures that make that difficult. So we're trying to work our way through that now and create more opportunities to have kids kids in front of teachers, even if that means being on screens a little bit more.
Thanks. Thank you, Bruce. Ms. Mangano, back to you.
Yes, I agree with the Wednesdays. The Wednesdays are kind of a disaster, even when there's multiple children in the house, like my house. It just doesn't work. I mean, the bottom line is whether it's we're saying we're doing a great job, or we're trying to do the best, we're not doing a good job at all, because I don't see things getting accomplished. I don't see work getting really accomplished. The kids are on the computer minimal time. I don't see, what's the difference of a deep cleaning day versus what we're doing on a regular cleaning day that would prevent the kids from being in the classroom? That's my question.
Well, I think the operational question there is really important. But before we go to that, the things that you don't see or that no one is really able to see is the amount of professional learning, the trainings, the workshops, the team meetings, all of that stuff that is occurring on that Wednesday that allows staff to be better prepared for those other days. Not to say that we need to keep it the way it is, because again, I'm acknowledging what you're saying. We need to move this along in a different direction on these Wednesdays. But those are some of the things that have helped the teachers be better prepared over this past month on those other 4 days. I think your operational question is a good one too. But I just want to drop that in there because those are definitely things that are not easily seen in the background.
Well, I understand that, the teachers need some prepping and learning all this new stuff but we're failing the students, because the students are not getting anything on Wednesday. Wednesday's a wash. I'm just being very honest. It just seems to me that Wednesday is just basically a free day and we're doing bare minimal work. And I feel like they're already behind as much as they are now. I mean, I don't know how we're going to catch up.
It's 40 lost days of education over the course of a year, because that's approximately
It
how many
just
months
doesn't
it is.
make sense to me. It doesn't.
Well, again, totally acknowledged and working on it. When we say catch up relative, we have to, again, think about where we are in the context of the rest of the state, the rest of the county. We're back in school, where many others are not back in school right at all yet, maybe just fully remote. So while we do have work to do, no doubt about it. And like I said, I met with a team today. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. So let the fact that it's a back-to-back set of days kind of be an expression of the urgency that we feel in this too. So we're trying to move that work. You know, as far as catching up or moving ahead, everyone across the country is in the same boat. So we are making steady progress. And as it was acknowledged even earlier, I think maybe before we went live with the session, we're out and in front of it in ways that many other districts weren't able to be. So, you know, a lot of great work has been done. There's still a lot of great work that needs to be done, much to your point there, Ms. Mangano, much to your point.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's not good work. I'm just saying that the kids are falling behind. And if we're looking at even moving forward into the new stages, we're still looking at more Wednesdays, more, you know, days that they're not, you know, especially with the kids being, the high school's going back, we're not going to have a lot of guidance from elder siblings, kids that are being home alone. To me, I like I said, I want to know what's the difference between our deep cleaning processes and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What's the difference?
Yep,
Is that-
and we'll turn that to Ron in just a second, but a couple things that, you know, I'd like to speak about. So first and foremost, none of this is perfect. We recognize that from Jump Street. I've said that every step of the way. Our staff has worked incredibly hard every single day of the week, in many cases till 11 o'clock at night, in many cases on Saturday and Sunday. And don't cry, you know, I'm not asking for a pat on the back, but I'm telling you, I'm witnessing some of the most amazing work by educators in our district. And what they said loud and clear to me is Wednesday provides them that opportunity to check in on kids because of the complexity of the hybrid model, the two different, you know, the A group, the B group, the virtual group. The complexity of education today is like no other time. So we can all say, let's hurry up and do 5 days, but I don't even know that there's confidence among the people on this panel, and we're going to find out about what we're doing A and B. So I get very mixed messages from our community at times. And what I can tell you is, as the superintendent of schools, who absolutely loves this community and works every day on behalf of it, we're doing what we believe is right and in the best interest of our students and staff. And that's not popular work sometimes, but when we say things like it's a waste of time, it's 40 wasted days of instruction, I'm going to tell you, and I don't know, maybe this will come back and bite me. I take offense to that because I know how hard everyone is working, and I know the work that's happening here is unparalleled by other school districts. That doesn't mean we can't improve, to Mr. Preston's point, and we will continue to do so. Every single day, every single night, we think about improvement. That's why we're on this call. That's why I'm answering emails all weekend and through the day and telling people why I believe it's important we get back to in-person instruction at higher levels than we're seeing right now, because I know the in-person model is best. We just got to do it safely and slowly. Mr. Sanisak, could you address the intense cleaning that happens on Wednesday and what's different about it and why we think it's helpful? And then, of course, if you want to go into the contact tracing, you can feel free to do so as well.
So I think, and Ms. Mangano, and we gave, I tried not to say deep cleaning because the cleaning is being done on an evening to evening basis. But the Wednesday gives us an opportunity to do some of those areas that you can't get at the same time, and that we can do other treatments that have drying time and things like that. But it also is a time to catch up. If there's a room with a couple absences, we hit that room. It's not necessarily the manner of cleaning as much as it's the ability to to take a break, to let contact tracing, that's what Mr. Isola was just alluding to have that time to react and evolve to whatever happened on Monday, Tuesday that we don't have the weekend to deal with. So it's not necessarily a completely different cleaning mode. We do hit those rooms where there may have been a child calling out or a staff member calling out, and we can use the lights and we can do some other things. But that's not to say we don't do that during the week as well. But the Wednesday gives us that opportunity to hit those places where we may have seen something. It gives us the opportunity to do the buses not on the fly. It gives us the opportunity to check in with the school physician and do some of that contact tracing. Ms. Fernandez and I kind of both deal with that on the day-to-day basis. So it's that opportunity more than it is an exact method of cleaning. And hopefully that answers your question. And the contact tracing, I know last community interaction, I believe it was, or maybe at a board meeting, Mr. Isola mentioned how the director of the Monmouth County Health Department, Chris Merkel, said how great it is that we have that break so we can catch these things. So it was given that nomenclature of deep cleaning, but it's really not about a different cleaning. It's about a different level of opportunity to clean, if that's a better answer.
Sure. And back to Mr. Isola. I mean, I'm not sitting here knocking any of the teachers or any of the work that's being done. That wasn't my intention. My intention was to say that you have parents and you have students that are working just as hard as the staff is, parents that are working double, working at home, from
Absolutely.
home, or jobs that they're doing,
Mhm.
handling multiple children, becoming all of a sudden teachers and having to adjust to all these new normals. So when I'm saying it's a waste of time, I'm saying to you that when you have parents that are so frustrated, kids are getting frustrated, the whole system is screwed up because everybody's frustrated. So when we have that happening, that to me, that we're failing the kids. I never said the teachers aren't working hard. I know I have friends that are teachers who are working their butts off. They can't, they're working nonstop overnight till 11, 12 o'clock, like you said, preparing lessons, doing everything they can. But our main focus has to be those kids. And I know that is your goal, but we're seeing a lot of frustration in the homes, and
Yeah,
it has to be
I
addressed,
couldn't agree more with you, Ms. Mangano. And you and I have had some wonderful conversations. And I know you recognize the challenge in should I stay or should I go, right? You and I have had some really good conversations about the complexity and the decision making. And, I think you often end with the conversation, I'm glad I'm not you.
Yep.
So I know you appreciate the staff, and certainly didn't want it to sound as if you didn't appreciate the staff. I know you're a very pro teacher, but I just, not everyone who's listening and jumping in for the first time understands the depth of your knowledge. And we want to make sure that we don't present in a way that could be misunderstood. And in an attempt to protect our board and this committee, I want to make sure that this community knows we're in lockstep about supporting our staff so that we can take care of our kids. It is the same goal, but we got to make sure that we're doing it in a way that's we have an intelligent approach about it. Now, with that being said, Ms. Mangano, and you and I have talked about this as well, I believe. We are, one of the first school districts. Well, we were one of the first districts to open in the cohort model, and we are certainly one of the first school districts to advance its plan. So there are some school districts that have been in 5 days, some of the small shore communities that have, 150 kids in their whole district, they're a very different environment, right? But we are the first large school district advancing its plan and putting more in-person opportunities for students just for that very reason, because A, it's best for kids to be in front of trained teachers that care about them and want to take care of them. And two, we recognize that it's challenging for the household. There's no doubt about that. But we just got to understand that we're hearing from many different angles on this topic. There are people that feel we're moving too quickly, and we got to be respectful to their thoughts and their desires as members of our community as well. And that's the tough balancing act. You know that because you've been on this board for quite some time, and the many diverse opinions that the board and the administration deal with is challenging at times, no doubt. So thank you, Ms. Mangano.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I just want to pivot back to my comment about Wednesday, and I'm not trying to say that, Mr. Isola, in a way that anybody's going to take offense to it, but I'm saying it as a parent observing the tears of a struggling first grader, seeing an eighth grader who is pretty much just doing busy work and is done for the day at 9:30 a.m. How much actual learning is going on these days. So if you add that up over the course of 2, 3, 4 months, depending on how long this goes on, and nobody knows how long this is going to go on. We're dealing with a ton of unknowns right now. But to me, I see days that we're not getting the productivity in the educational model that you would normally have. And clearly, this year has challenges that we'll never, hopefully, ever see again. But when we were doing 2 days in the cohort model, I fully understood the Wednesday purpose. I just feel, based on the struggles that I'm witnessing, that if we're going to go 4 days, we should go 5 days. That we're doing daily cleanings, as Mr. Stanisak, described. I feel as if we can't be going 2 more months, even 6 more weeks, Wednesday the way we are right now, because number one, you have the kids who are struggling, but you also have parents that are struggling who don't know how to help their kids. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Mr. Isola, I just want to make clear, we are looking to make changes to Wednesday. Now, and I'm talking instructionally, so that there's more interaction and that engagement, active engagement, becomes more present on those days. So we are, wherever we land, I don't expect Wednesdays to look the same. This Wednesday may look similar to Wednesdays of the past, but moving forward from there, I don't expect that they're going to look very much the same. To hear that we're wrapping up by 9:30, I've got some lesson plans to go check, but I think, again, I want to just be clear. We hear you in those concerns, share those concerns, and are looking to make changes accordingly, but as safely as possible.
And I think we'll put a pin in this one, but I think we were clear that in our opening, we're looking at increasing student and staff engagement on Wednesdays and in the afternoons. We opened with that, and I expect you've been charged with that, as you know, Mr. Preston. That's why you had your meeting today, and I think you're following up tomorrow with the supervisory staff so that we can do it in a way that we support staff and we can get it done correctly. So I think we're all in agreement that Wednesdays need to become certainly as meaningful as possible. But again, this is where we find ourselves right now about combining the A and B cohort. So Ms. McGann, I'll turn it back to you for any more questions.
I just have one more question.
Sure.
Is there any guidance counselors checking in on the kids? Are there daily check-ins? So how is that working? Is that like a student need, or are they just kind of like branching out to student cohorts to kind of see if anybody's struggling, or how social, emotional?
I think there's a couple of prongs to that, right? So there's no one size fits all there. So first and foremost, they have children that they've been working with over the years, right? So there's a relationship between the guidance counselor and certain families. Those relationships are obviously continuing to move forward. We want to, and principals and guidance counselors meet regularly. They know if, for example, someone hasn't been checking in on asynchronous opportunities or signing off or not showing their camera. So there's all different indicators or red flags that a teacher may tell a guidance counselor about, just like if it was in class. And then those guidance counselors should be reaching out and are reaching out to those families to do kind of well-visit check-ins with the children that may or may be kind of disconnecting a little bit, because again, like we've been saying all night and for weeks, not every kid does well with this much computer time, right? They may say, this is too much. I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to be at the dashboard all day or at the keyboard all day. So we have to find out and check in with families on why kids aren't, what they may be struggling with, and then provide support for them, as well as dealing with children who are in school on their cohort days. So yeah, I think guidance counselors have been working closely with the building administration to certainly address any of that. Ms. Fernandez, do you have anything to add to that? I know you oversee guidance.
So the month of September, obviously, everybody was getting back into school, adjusting. There were some needs that needed to be addressed based upon individuals that reached out to the guidance counselor specifically, or some known areas that the guidance counselor had. The month of October is typically a high level, actively engaged month for guidance, because they have a variety of different programs that they implement throughout the school year. Some of what they are addressing with some of the programs that they have in place for the month of October are being modified just specifically for these reasons that you're mentioning. So there is more direct engagement during this month than you would typically see during the month of September.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the committee?
Heather?
Yeah, it's Mark. Heather, did you want to speak?
I did, but you can go first, Mark.
No, go ahead, Heather. I will wait for you.
Thank you. And just to add to what everyone is saying as far as the frustration, I emailed the teachers on Friday morning and had responses by the afternoon. And then to get the letter from the superintendent made my night on Friday night, because one thing I'm hearing from everyone is that frustration, and I hate to say it, but misery does love company. It makes me feel a little bit better as a parent to know that I'm not the only one.
You're normal, right?
It's the new norm. Unfortunately, it's not a good thing, and I know we'll move past it, but I feel like my children are just as frustrated with me as I am with them. And I used to be a teacher for a long time in public schools. I left that profession for a reason, because it wasn't a good fit for me. And here I am with my children, and it's still not a good fit. So the 4 days is a great next step I'm excited for. And I realize that there's other factors holding us back from the full days and the 5 days, but I'm very hopeful that in the future, near future, we'll be moving towards those days. With that said, I do have a few questions. So regarding symptoms, we are, approaching that allergy season, cold, flu season, and everyone's on high alert. And I don't know if you've seen the great list circulating around Facebook, but it has about 50 symptoms on it for the coronavirus. So every time your child sneezes, you think it's the coronavirus. So I know that my child went to school a few weeks ago with a runny nose. He has allergies, but I was very concerned about if I was going to get a call from the nurse, who I would need to contact. And so I'm curious, as far as the list of symptoms, what would cause an exclusion? I know daycares, so I bring that knowledge with me. So I know daycares, it's 2 or more exclusions, or 2 or more symptoms would, categorize that exclusion. I also know that one in the category of a sore throat, a cough, would then automatically cause an exclusion. So as a parent, I follow those guidelines and will happily exclude my child if necessary. But I'm also afforded the opportunity, because my husband stays home, so I can also go and work, as I know other parents don't. So I think just being very clear as to what the expectations are for parents that don't have the luxury of just, keeping their kids at home just in case. I would appreciate that. And then the second part to that question is that if the child has symptoms and is excluded and asked to take that 2-week of quarantine or virtual learning, can a parent take that child for a COVID test, get a negative test, and bring them back? Or can I get a doctor's note that says it's just allergies? It's,
Okay, yep. Great, Heather. Thanks so much for your recognitions of the challenge and your kind words about the work that's happening, and certainly your questions about moving forward. So some of that's pretty easy, and then I'll turn to Ms. Fernandez for maybe some of the more detailed stuff. So the latter half of your question is pretty simple. If a child is symptomatic, and they get told by school nurse they're going to be out for 10 days until symptom-free, they absolutely could go get a COVID test and return with a negative. Or it's not as simple as a doctor's note saying it's allergies. It has to exclude COVID as a cause for the symptoms. And we've updated our screening processes, and Ms. Fernandez can talk you through that. And so Dodie, why don't you take the more detailed approach towards that? But I wanted to personally, thank Heather for her remarks and acknowledge that some of that was actually cleaned up, not cleaned up, but enhanced, because we're seeing symptoms starting to present that may or may not be COVID related, right? Because of allergies. The change of the weather brings allergies and things of that nature. So we work closely with our school physician to clarify that. So go ahead, Ms. Fernandez.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, there is an extremely exhaustive list of symptoms that could potentially be related to COVID. And that is the challenge, because as we are entering into cold and flu season, and also combined with allergies, many of them mimic other things other than COVID. Now, our district physician has worked with us closely. And in fact, just today, we updated our daily health screening for students, and our health protocols that are listed on our website are being revised and posted to the website probably as we speak. The exhaustive list of symptoms, unfortunately, do include fever or chills, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headache, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion or runny nose, nausea or vomiting, and diarrhea. Well, what's not on there is probably what you're asking, because that is the challenge with this. The only thing that interestingly is on there that's unique to COVID is that loss of taste or smell. We had somebody report that to us. They got tested, and interestingly, they were not positive for COVID. So with that, it becomes very, very challenging to vet all of this out. What our district physician has advised us is that the nurses do, if the child or a parent has reported any one of those symptoms on the list, there is no way for the nurses to know definitively that it is not COVID. Our goal is to keep COVID out of the buildings. Why? Because then we don't have transmission rates increasing, and then we can keep schools open. So unfortunately, we are in a situation where students are excluded from school for a period of time based on those symptoms. However, the one thing our district physician has agreed to is that he will review an alternate diagnosis. So there's really kind of a few ways back in. Symptoms need to resolve. We need to keep students out for 10 days. Otherwise, you can go and get a COVID test. That has always been a part of our protocol if you choose to do that. And some parents choose not to do that because they feel it's an invasive test. They don't want to put their children through it. But your options are wait out the symptoms. You can get a COVID test. If we do get a negative, and what it has to be is the PCR test, which is the one, not the rapid. It's the one that goes out to the lab and then comes back, because there is a greater level of accuracy with that test. Or if your physician can provide us with an alternate diagnosis and states that it is not COVID, our district physician will review that medical documentation and make a determination if that child is allowed to return to school. He did successfully do that with a student and returned a child to school today. Under that particular part of the protocol. So there are some options. It's up to you as a parent, which of the options available to you once a child has been excluded that you're going to plan to take. Okay.
And we recognize we're probably, over the course of the winter, will exclude children that are really probably COVID negative, right? But out of an abundance of caution and an attempt to safeguard the environment and maintain in-person instruction as much as possible, we're going to have to be really strict about that. And that's problematic for families who are dealing with that, but risking allowing a student or a staff member in the building, it goes for staff members too, by the way, who has these symptoms, you know, we can have to shut down a whole school or worse, right? So we have to take a very strong stance there because we got to safeguard the health and safety of the environment and the children and staff. So, Heather, was there anything else you had on that to follow up?
Yes, thank you for that answer. So my next question is definitely more in the future. Talking about holiday travel, right? We have the holidays coming up, the Thanksgiving, the Christmas. Knowing that there's 35 states now on that quarantine for 2 weeks, is there going to be anything put in place that is going to stipulate that if staff or children are doing any type of travel to those specific areas, that they would be required to be virtual for the 2 weeks after? Just so that we can all plan as parents. I know some other districts are planning on just doing all virtual for the 2 weeks after the winter break. So I'm just putting it out there as if there was any type of discussion regarding it, or if this is kind of.
So, yep. So thanks again. So not specifically surrounding the holidays, but if you voluntarily travel to a state that's on the do not travel list or advisory list, we are requiring as a district the quarantining to take place. So we would be dealing with that on an individual basis. Ms. Fernandez, is there anything that you need to clarify on that? I think
Yeah,
that's.
no, I say that has been always a part of the daily health
Yep.
screening. The first part is the symptomology. The second part of the daily health screening is potential contact, which also includes travel to those regions that may be of a high mitigation level.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Thanks, Heather. I think, Mark, you were next. If it's okay with Ms. Mangano, we'll go right to you.
Yeah, it's fine unless Donna wants to jump in. I can wait for her as well. But I certainly appreciate everything that you guys are trying to do here and build out, you know, as quickly as you've been able to. I mean, this is great progress. I'm very mindful of the burdens that are placed on teachers with having to kind of toggle between like an in-person learning environment and the virtual, and sometimes trying to do them simultaneously. You know, as far as, you know, if the goal is to add more in-person instruction time for our students, you know, I kind of look at it as like, you know, you could do it vertically or you could do it laterally. And I know Mr. Isola and I kind of talked very briefly about that before we got started this call. And, you know, and I certainly can understand the concerns about adding in, you know, lunch periods and other types of activities in which there's a greater likelihood that students may, you know, deviate from, you know, the mask protocol, and there may be more interactions that could be, you know, get a little unruly, you know, they with kids are kids, you know, I have kids, I get it. One of the, you know, some of the ideas that kind of came to my mind, you know, first of all was like, you know, we get to that December 4th deadline. You know, now we have all both cohorts together for 4 half days. You know, there's going to be, you know, obviously more kids in the classroom setting. That's why we talked about, you know, the whole distancing. But then come December 4th, if you have more families that want to opt back into the in-person, you know, you may find your numbers are going to go up beyond December 4th. And now you're going to have to, you know, look at, okay, like, you know, like, is this too much? Are there too many students now? Do we maybe have to go now toggle back to the A, B and split these groups up because it's too many kids in the building altogether? I'm sure you've thought about this. It's something that came to my mind as we were, you know, having this conversation. And one of the things that, you know, I was thinking is that if the goal is to add more in-person instruction time, and I'm sure you've contemplated every different possible schedule, but
There's always more. There's always another one. Trust me.
I know, and, you know, talking with other districts and whatnot, you know, like, you know, some ideas are brought to me, but this is something that came to my mind today. And I thought about this, not necessarily as something to do now, because you have a plan that you're going to roll out now, and I'm sure it's going to work successfully. But come December, when, you know, if you have more students coming into the building and you still want to add more instruction time, you know, I was thinking like, well, why don't we, you know, make that Wednesday that we've been talking about so far this evening, why don't we build that back into as an in-person instructional day and switch that, have that alternating, alternating between the A and the B cohorts. That's certainly an option I'm sure you guys have thought about. And then ultimately at some point, we're probably going to have to try to do a little vertical build-in with some full days. And, if there's risks adding students together into the building, combining the cohorts, well, there's risks with the lunch and all these other activities as well. So, at some point, you're going to have to kind of take the plunge as a community. We're going to have to take a plunge on everything. Yeah. And, and maybe talk about building in like a Tuesday, Thursday as a full day or something, or doing full days, go like a full day, and then, alternate that on a 10-day cycle with the B cohort. So those are just different things, because I think that, it's important for the students to have that social experience of lunch, whether it's in a cafeteria with only 50 or 40% of the student population, or they're doing it in a classroom setting. So, those are just some of my thoughts about being creative and building vertically as well as laterally. That's all.
I love it, Mr. Parisi. Thanks so much for your thoughtful remarks. I think, I think you're right. We've been thinking about 8 ways to Sunday, like so many school districts, and I know you're active in at least 2 of them. So you're privy to a lot of different conversations, but we absolutely are looking at when we want to expand vertically, to your point. Is it going to be a hybrid where, certain groups on a rotating basis will get access to the CAF, others will eat in classrooms. We've talked about heated tents. We've talked about a lot of different opportunities utilizing the stage and the landings in the middle schools. So there's a lot of different opportunities to again, mitigate risk. But until it's about building confidence, right? It's about living the increase of what you're calling the horizontal movement here, and getting really comfortable that we're doing a good job, coming back 5 days. And again, it could be sooner than the beginning of December if things go great. We have 2-3 great weeks. That builds confidence. We're ready to pull the trigger. But we got to do it in a way that our staff and our students and families all share in the confidence, because it is sometimes the silent majority that I worry about, and not everyone who is, just because you're not posting on a social media site or you're not writing the superintendent or principal an email doesn't mean you don't have desires and needs for your family, right? So we have to try to make sure we're being inclusive in our actions. And these are challenging times because there are very divergent thoughts on this topic, as you know. But I really like your thinking and talking about, structuring it in, with maybe, 2 days a week lunch periods first, right? And doing things and teaching kids protocols in there. And this way it's not moving too fast and furious for us to build good routines. We want to be able to do that. So all good thoughts, and absolutely things, some of them we've considered, and some of them, I really appreciate, because I hadn't personally thought of some of the things you said. So I love listening and learning from each other. It's really the right way to do it. And just because you're, not a member of a staff or on a board or on a committee doesn't mean your ideas don't, get legs or have credence, right? So we want to always be listening to our partners in the community. So thank you for that. I think Donna was next. Am I right, Ms. Mangano?
I just, one of my thoughts, I didn't have anything prior, but I do know after hearing Mark speak, I also just think you want to be mindful of making too many changes or too many steps, because I feel like the children don't have the ability to then get comfortable and know where they're going. If it's changing from week to week to week, or these days I have lunch, those days I don't, it's a lot for especially the little ones. It may not be as much of an impact 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But I dare say, especially K, 1, 2, it's a lot for them to keep track of. And just when they start to get a rhythm, so I feel like they're just starting to get a rhythm of, these are my in-school days, these are my home days. Now they're going to go to 4 in-school days, which is wonderful. I think that's a great step. But so I think maybe back to maybe what Mr. Thor was saying, rather than go to 4, then go to 5. And I don't know the logistics of it all. I do know the Wednesday is important for the staff as well. And it's also a good catch-up day for for kids, right? Because there are some kids that are not as productive as others on those days, and so they also need those Wednesdays as catch-up days. So
Mhm.
I don't know what the answer is, but it's just another thought to throw in there, just to be mindful of not always, not wanting to put too many changes in.
Not always being in flux, right? Some
Yeah,
stability.
sometimes
I got
flux
you.
is a lot. It's a lot for
I hear you.
especially littles.
Yep. So I appreciate those comments as well. Thank you so much, Don. Ms. Mangano, is there anyone else from the committee that has questions?
Anybody else have any questions? Maybe we can go to the public's comments now.
You'd
and
like us to
questions.
open the chat? Yeah?
Yes, please.
Great. Okay, so Ms. Cray's going to do that, and she'll read them for us, and then we'll assign them to the most appropriate person, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Mangano. So the chat should be opening right now, and they're coming in. Now, remember, if someone asked the question before you typed it in and we answered it, we may not answer your specific question if it's been answered already, but we're going to try to get to all of them in a meaningful way, so.
So the first one,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that I disagree about Wednesdays. Wednesdays provide a great opportunity for all virtual second graders. He has taken assessments that in school kids are able to do in school and has met one-on-one to find his reading level. This would have not been able to be accomplished without Wednesday. All students may not benefit from this day, but I do feel it has benefited my child greatly. I also find Wednesday to be a good use of independent practice and understanding for my second grader. I do not feel it is safe to combine two cohorts, and it deters me further from sending my son to in-person, which I had hoped to be able to do by December. It doesn't seem possible to social distance in an appropriate way. The next one is,
Thank you for those comments.
what is the minimum acceptable safe social distance in classrooms and on a bus? You keep leaving yourself some serious wiggle room by saying the best we can do, best we can when we can't do 6 feet, but we will be close. The best can be 0 feet. A class with 21 students or more will not be close. I speak from experience and not from speculation. A bus seat with 2 kids on it will not be close, and social distancing is gone.
So I'm not sure what the question is. What do I think is safe? I think, again, according to the district doctor, as close to 6 feet as possible is good, but if we're facing in the same direction wearing masks as outlined by the state, that will provide us with the opportunity to mitigate the spread and keep kids safe and staff safe. So I don't think, there's some reports that say 3 feet, will be much greater than that. So we're doing our best to maintain as close to 6 as possible, and that may vary by room by room.
Thank you for all you continue to do. Just wanted to say my kids are doing well on Wednesdays. My kids are having one-on-one conferences in small groups, in addition to some time on Zoom and time to work independently. I do not feel like it is used as a quote day off at all. It would be great to have some live specials.
Right, and that's what we're moving towards, that as we talked about with earlier, the more engagement on Wednesdays with the specials and things like that will be coming. So that's good news.
How will snack time and mask breaks take place in a full classroom?
So again, the classrooms aren't what you would envision as a typically full classroom, right? There's no additional furniture. We've kind of stripped down the rooms. They're not the educational environments that we work so hard to build are now on hold until post-pandemic. So again, there's, in a room that can generally, a middle school room can probably fit up to, 30, 35 desks. We're looking at having less than 20 in many of them, up to around 20, so that there is definitely room in there. Mask breaks will be done through the scheduling by the building leadership, just like we talked about when we first launched in September. And not every kid, again, outside whenever possible, large areas. Kids can do SEL breaks. They can go down to the cafeteria by groups and utilize the space differently. Building principals will create schedules that are creative, but within the classroom, we'll probably have to alternate rows to take the mask break. It won't be all, 15, 16, 17 kids at once. It'll be rotated. And again, that's just good practice. And we're seeing that if the building leadership builds the schedules out, we'll kind of see that type of schedule, that type of practice happening. And we have confidence that we can provide safe and healthy mass breaks and snack time for kids. Again, we have a lot of our elementary buildings have some additional space in them that we can utilize wisely, and building principals as recent as today on a leadership meeting or a principals meeting, we're talking about that. So we're confident we're going to be able to do that safely.
I just wanted to speak about my family's experience on Wednesdays. I have 4 students that are fully virtual, and their teachers, especially primary and elementary, have done an amazing job using the daily learning plans to keep my students learning on schedule. There's more facilitation on my part for my 2nd grader, but I don't agree that it's a wasted day. Also, please don't forget about the virtual learners.
Absolutely. The virtual learners remain an essential part. They are equal partners in our educational environment, or, there's absolutely no way that we will forget about families and their children who have elected to be virtual for whatever reason fits their needs. By increasing in-person, the experience for the families that selected in person, we think that's good. We think families who selected in person want their kids in school, and that should not be at the expense or leverage of virtual students by no stretch of the imagination. We value every single student, regardless of the environment in which their families and the students have elected to attend school. All students are attending school, and we will do our best to take care of each and every one of them. While the experience will definitely be different, it doesn't mean it'll be less meaningful or we will not. Trust me, I don't know who wrote that, but trust me, I will continue to pound the drum to take care of all students, virtual and in person. And our Board of Education wouldn't allow me to do anything else.
In schools such as Ardena that have small classrooms and where social distance is already hard to maintain, will plexiglass or other barriers be available to classrooms to ensure safety? And thank you to all our amazing teachers. They are truly superheroes.
Yeah, thank you for those kind remarks. I know Mr. Fiore and Mr. Sanisak have looked at those rooms, and we have some other spaces available within that building, so we may make some adjustments for the handful of classes that seem large. But remember, with the virtual students, they're not going back to full. We have to remember that approximately 30% of our kids are virtual still, and that may change a little bit this week. Some people may opt to go more virtual, some may opt. So that's being worked out at the school level there. And I know that Mr. Fiore and Mr. Sanisak are in constant communication.
My child is currently hybrid. I am very comfortable with 2 days a week. If I am not comfortable with this move to combine cohorts, then it is my only option to go backwards to full virtual. I am not confident that having 20+ students in a classroom will be safe.
So at this point, we're looking at a 4-day model. So your clear option would be to select virtual. It's probably not what you want to hear tonight. I apologize for that. But one of the things we're looking to do is build stability within the cohorts and allow staff to address the needs of their kids and have fewer cohorts to manage, therefore being more effective with all students. So at this point, that is how we see the plan.
Can specials be done in school now that they will be in school 4 days?
Specials will remain in the afternoon section of the day, as we mentioned earlier. I'm not sure when the question came in, but as we mentioned earlier, we're looking to build further engagement through the digital platform, but they will not yet take place in school. But we do see them being, again, more engaging and synchronous at times.
Thoughts for a productive virtual Wednesday. Grades 5-8 instruction will be better utilizing Zoom, i.e. breakout rooms for collaboration of a new concept. K2 will be asynchronous with designated individual meeting times with the teacher for assessment and a mix of both for grades 3 and 4.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a recommendation. That's a suggestion, I think, right? Thank you for that.
Other districts are using plastic dividers, especially when 6 feet can't happen. Any possibility we can get those placed?
We're looking at that for certain situations. So I'm going to reserve the answer at this point. We don't see them broadly across the district at this time. Again, the road back was clear to every extent possible. If wearing masks and facing in the same direction could be inside 6 feet. Again, we see very sound distancing, and we'll certainly know when we get the kids in that, if we're at 5.5 feet, there's going to be a level of confidence. If we have environments, maybe to Mr. Parisi's comment, when we talk about bringing more students back, is that a possible thing to allow even more students in? Yeah, that's something we may have to look at down the road. But right now, we are not broadly utilizing dividers.
Thanks for doing a great job with the planning. Keeping the kids safe is the most important factors. Back to the traveling to a quarantine state and then the supposed to be remote for 2 weeks being on the daily screening. That is good, but can a reminder be specifically sent to everyone so that it is fresh on their minds?
Dodie, did we send out a reminder on the updated form yet?
Well, there's not, I think that question is specific to a separate reminder about travel, which it is in.
Oh, sure.
the daily screening.
Yep. I apologize. I think to Heather's point, while we weren't treating the holiday season any different, we'll certainly put reminders out from the school leadership to families. Remember, if you're traveling, and Ms. Gray's making a note as we speak. So we'll follow up with that, and we'll hammer away at that through our school messenger with the building level leadership. Thank you for that. I appreciate that thought.
You talk about mask breaks. My kids have yet to get a mask break. They have yet to be taken outside. 3 feet apart is unacceptable. Please explain how adding both cohorts together will be safe. Ideally, people are 6 feet apart and masked. 3 feet apart with masks is only ideal if outside. Do you plan on holding classes outside?
So there was a lot there. First and foremost, if your child has not experienced a mask break, I encourage you to speak directly with your building principal. Hopefully you can reach out to them via email or phone tomorrow. Certainly feel free to send me a message at jisola@howell.k12.nj.us, and I'll absolutely forward it along so that your concern about mask breaks could be answered and addressed, because that is an expectation that those breaks are provided for our students, and staff needs them too, actually. We want to make sure we're giving everyone that opportunity to take the mask off and breathe a little bit. The 6.5, teachers are in the buildings in many cases for the whole day, but certainly some of them travel home. But 4 hours with arrival and dismissal, 4.5 hours is a long time to be wearing a mask. So we want to make sure we're providing opportunities to do that. Outside opportunities for learning do exist. We don't have the structure of a classroom outside at this point. Again, with the winter coming, that becomes more challenging. Now, we're not upon the winter just yet. But certainly students and teachers have been, well, let me correct that. Teachers have been encouraged to utilize the outside areas as much as possible. So again, if you're not hearing that's happening, I want to encourage you to reach out to your building leadership and see if you can't get a better understanding of what's happening and why. And then I'll certainly add it to my leadership team meeting for Thursday to make sure that the team knows, or even put out an email. Today's Monday. I'm not going to wait till Thursday. We'll put an email out tonight or tomorrow morning to principals reminding staff to utilize mask breaks to every extent possible. And certainly while the weather permits, we want to get kids outside.
I feel that it is too soon to combine cohorts and go on a 4-day schedule, considering this is cold and flu season and you have parents afraid to send their kids to school. How schools have done well thus far with no reported cases. If it's not broken, why try and fix it?
Again, it's not about broken. I think we are doing well. We've had a few cases, by the way, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, but we're doing well. We're not seeing a lot of cases, and that's good. Again, it's not about being broken. We just feel, and the Board of Education, along with our administrative team, have had multiple conversations. While this is challenging work, we've said all along that this is imperfect in every step of the way, and there is no substitute for in-person instruction to be substituted for. It's the best way for students to learn, and that's with a caring and dedicated professional. And at the end of the day, we want to provide opportunities for those families that do feel comfortable to have greater access to in-person instruction. Again, this is not a one-size-fits-all. This is challenging work. So I do appreciate your comments.
The teachers are doing an amazing job juggling 2 worlds. Kudos to them. However, as a teacher myself, I do not understand why live instruction cannot take place during the half day on Wednesday, or required, not optional, small groups, which would be amazing. They have 5 days a week after school to prep. I seriously hope they are not being burdened with PD often during those afternoons. Let them plan, let them do what they do best.
So, I have an opinion that PD is not a burden. I think it's really important work, and we're in new environments, and a lot of our PD has been voluntary. We provide resources for staff so they may attend if they're available and able. We've provided a lot of structure for our staff to do their planning. The use of the daily learning plan has been enormously helpful for students, staff, and parents. I believe it is a best practice, and we're going to be speaking about that at the conference. So I really think we've done well. I couldn't agree more with you that the teachers are doing an amazing job. But at the end of the day, it is challenging, as you know, and we want to make sure that staff has the support they need, and balancing that with giving them as much time as possible. Now, we shouldn't make assumptions that when the kids leave, the staff's not doing anything. They're checking in on kids. They're engaging with small groups. They're working more than ever, as I know, based on what you said, you're fully aware of that. So we're doing all the right work around that. And, I couldn't agree more. Kudos to the staff. They've been putting their best foot forward in very, very challenging and stressful times. So I couldn't agree more with what you said.
I appreciate you doing your best to keep our kids safe. I agree it's important to get the kids back to school. I think the majority of parents of young children are happy that the cohorts are going to be together. You have done your due diligence by allowing parents who are concerned to leave their children home. That's what parents should be doing if they don't feel their children are safe, not holding all of their students back with unreasonable expectations. Wednesdays has been going better than virtual last year, but is still not as good as in-person learning. I am all for a 5-day schedule. Half days are fine, as it is hard for kids to wear masks.
Thank you for your remarks.
First, Wednesday virtual are working very well. I, as a parent of 2 children, one at Howell Middle School North and one at Memorial School, the staff at both schools are working extremely hard in engaging the students on these days. I have seen very much growth from both my children, and they are using new skills that they have acquired. Second, with regard to this afternoon's email from Memorial stating families have until this Thursday to request their children transition from virtual to in-person, how will the extra children be accommodated? This is in addition to cohorts A and B being combined into one classroom for 4 days of in-person instruction, as announced by Mr. Isola on Friday, October 9th. For example, my daughter's class has 23 kids total. That's a combination of cohorts A and B and all virtual. Now with the new phase 1.5, cohorts A and B will be combined in the class for a total of 17 kids. Hypothetically, if 3 more all virtual kids join the class, how do you socially distance 20 kids safely?
So again, we don't think that's going to be a one-way street, and we don't want to be disrespectful to any families. So part of the charge from the Board of Education was to be clear in our communication and provide opportunities for families to adjust. I think that our board's done a great job in setting that direction for me. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. And just to, put a letter out on Friday, and I'll speak to why that letter went out on Friday in a minute, because there was a comment about that. Not tonight, but I want to make sure everyone understands the process in which that was the reason why that was the way it was. But, so we want to make sure that parents know what's happening, and then they can make decisions for them. We think that there will be some people who say, I don't want to miss the train. I want to get on the 4-day situation. We do think most families who have exercised their right to be virtual are not going to be excited to come in full 4 days. We believe most of them would be more cautious based on their, what's right for their family, and we totally respect that. So we do see that this could be kind of a movement in many of our buildings due to good planning by the Board of Education and Administration. We have spaces available, so we could move, if there's a crowded room, into a larger area that is suitable for instruction on a needed basis. So those are some of the things we're looking at, but we wanted to make sure that we're serving all of our community with the same integrity and equity, so that we're not eliminating opportunities for families. If in fact it becomes too large of a group, we'll have to address that, and we're working through that with our principals.
The K2 students are not wearing their masks properly most of the time in class. Their noses are sticking out a lot of the time, or their masks are sucked into their mouths and becoming wet. This is not a proper, quote, mask wearing, upon which everything is pivoting.
So I haven't heard that, so thank you for sharing that. I'm making a note now to correspond with the K2 principals to kind of audit that a little bit. I haven't heard that. In fact, what I've heard is the kids are doing great with masks. I thought it was going to be a much bigger issue, to be honest, at all levels. But the wearing of the mask, we've had really good compliance throughout the entire, continuum from pre-K right up to 8th. So what's been shared with me and on my school visits, what I've witnessed is not what you report. And that's not to say it's not happening. I'm not trying to be combative at all. But that is absolutely something then we'll have to focus on and make sure we're supporting students and making sure they're learning how to wear their mask properly. So that will communicate that out and make sure that that is in fact happening. Now, again, those folks that are in the building are reporting differently to me, but we're going to find out for sure. So thanks for giving us that information.
Will temperatures of students and staff be taken in the morning upon arrival, especially now with larger class sizes?
No, so the CDC has said that temperature screening for students is not, best practice, that many young school-age kids are predominantly asymptomatic and fever would not always necessarily present. We are remembering, we're asking all of you to partner with us and make sure that you're not sending students, or if you're a staff member coming to work with a fever. So that really, we need your partnership on that to make sure that's happening. Thermometers are available for adults in the building, throughout the building and in the nurse's office, and we encourage them to take that on a regular basis. So again, the Monmouth County Health Department and our school physician has not recommended the temperature taking of every student upon entry.
You mentioned seeing New Jersey hotspot maps having Monmouth County in green. Can the map link be provided or posted on the school website?
I believe it's right on the Monmouth County Health Department, but we'll see if we can get a link up on that. Again, what I said was they're yellow currently. They were green recently. So once a week we get that map, and they have pivoted between green and yellow. We have not seen Monmouth County being, in any recent time, being anything more than green or yellow. So I just wanted to clarify that I am not suggesting we are in the low factor. We are in the moderate, which is yellow.
We're incredibly grateful for and impressed by the way Howell schools have met the challenges of the moment. Thank you all for your hard work and dedication. We love the asynchronous Wednesday for independent work, but also helpful as a de-stressing day. We would be very uncomfortable if you were to add lunch anytime soon. The risks far outweigh the benefits as outlined in the early September CDC study.
Thank you.
As a parent of a first grader, want to point out Wednesday is helpful to see the teacher's mouth to practice letter sounds and testing words. Is there any way that some materials can be kept in the classroom so the backpacks are not so heavy? Can parents send some duplicates so that the students can leave some things in class?
So that's a great question. I appreciate it greatly. What I'm going to do for on that, I don't know, Ms. Gray, do you have that person's name in their email?
I do.
Yeah, we're capturing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try to get to you separately, and maybe either me or the principal of your school speak to you about that. It's one of the things that we did talk about, but we'll also add that to our next principal meeting and see if there's any solutions. If we can help with that, we'll definitely do it. I think that's important.
Great job. Kids need to get back to school, and I do like the 4 half-day transition, especially for the younger kids. I'm sorry, this moved. I wish they didn't have to wear masks in class.
Hopefully someday soon.
So if they are not socially distanced 6 feet and have mask breaks, how is this following CDC guidance, not your district doctor, CDC that says 6 feet or masks?
I'm not sure. So we will be physically distanced, yes, sometimes within 6 feet and masked on. Breaks will not happen within 6 feet for mask. I'm not sure that totally answers your question, but I think that's what you were saying. So when mask break happens, no 2 students who are taking a mask break will be within 6 feet.
If this decision, based on what is educationally beneficial to the students, or is it based on safety? It seems like we are making decisions without considering the safety protocols. It's too soon.
I thank you for your concern. Absolutely. We looked at the whole picture and made the decision that we think we could maintain safe and healthy environments while improving the educational environments for our students.
Can parents still have the option of sending their children to school for 2 days a week if they are not comfortable with
Yeah,
4?
I think we answered that earlier. Yeah.
Are after school office hours being provided to all K2 students? If they aren't, is there a possibility to implement them in the future?
Bruce, I believe we have office hours and availability. Yes, that didn't change, did it?
Correct.
So the answer to that is yes, they should exist.
The windows in Middle School South don't open. How can you have proper air ventilation without windows that don't open?
Mr. Sanisak, I know that's right up your alley, so I'm going to turn that one to you.
Yes, the building at the time of, there are more than just windows that ventilate a building. The building at the time was designed with proper ventilation all through mechanical means, and it is functioning correctly. Everything was updated over the summer, as I reported at operations, and the building is properly ventilated through other means.
As well as the new ionization, right?
Yes, and the bipolar ionization was added. I was talking about volume of air, but the
Yep.
quality of the air will be improved by the bipolar ionization that was added in all the buildings.
Thank you, Ms. Sanisak.
How are you handling students who travel to areas that go to level 3 countries?
So again, high-risk travel zones, I believe the question is, and I think we did speak to that, where upon return, they'll be quarantined for the 14 days and have the opportunity to join through virtual opportunities. Did I answer that? Is anyone else? I think that answered that, right?
That was the last question.
Oh, okay. So Mrs. Mangano, I think we've answered every question that was in the chat tonight. So that's great news. I think we did that in a timely fashion. I feel good about that. I thought we had a few more in there. So again, I'll turn it back to you and the rest of the committee. Should there be any follow-up questions? It was interesting. I was surprised to hear as many supportive statements as Wednesdays. To be honest, I thought it was our biggest point of improvement, and certainly we're going to remain focused on that. But it was good to hear that there are certainly folks out there that are benefiting from the Wednesdays. That makes me feel a little bit better. I was licking my wounds about Wednesday earlier, and I still think it's a point of emphasis for us, but I did want to share that it was nice to hear that there are people who are benefiting from it.
There's somebody on the phone who has a question.
Oh, we have somebody on the phone, Miss Engel, right?
Well, I don't know if they have a question. I think we just need to state to them if they're looking to ask a question.
Okay, so if there's anyone who is an audio user, I think there's at least one, yes?
Correct.
If you have a question, I think you can raise your hand somehow on that
Yes,
audio.
you have to press *9.
So if the person who's joining us through audio only, if you have a question, you can press *9 and Miss Engel will be able to loop you in, okay? Sorry, Miss Mangano, I forgot about
That's
it.
okay. No worries.
Did you get a *9, Miss Engel?
I do not at this point.
Okay, so there we are, Miss Mangano. Back to you then. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any follow-up questions from the panel?
I do, if I may.
Okay, Mark.
So the issue with the mask wearing was interesting to me because it got me thinking that back in July, initially the Department of Education said that the students would not have to be required to wear masks
Right.
if they were socially distanced within the classroom, and then that changed in August, and now we're currently in a situation where students are required to wear masks in the school building. If we are going to increase the capacity of our in our buildings, and some of the classrooms are going to be less than 6 feet apart, and if the Department of Education were to lift the mask restriction contingent upon that 6 feet requirement being met, how would you attempt to reconcile that? Because I think there's a lot of families that would like their students not to have to wear masks in the school setting.
So what happens, Mark, Mr. Parisi, it's a great question. So first of all, if in fact the executive order gets lifted that forced the mask, we're back to the original document, which said mask wearing unless socially distant, right? Unless you cannot socially distant. Right now, we're back to, so this is a little circular, I apologize. So the original guidance and rules that came from the department and the state said, if you, to your point, and I'm just restating it, if you are unable to be 6 foot, you must have same direction mask being worn. Then the governor went one step further and said, you know what? In a school, let's everyone wear masks, even if you're 6 feet or not. So that's part of the conversation that I think gets lost a little bit. If you're inside 6 feet and have masks, you are in compliance with the state's guidance. But to your point, in the event that that gets lifted and we're able to stay 6 feet apart in some rooms, would we lift the mask wearing? I can tell you today, I would say no. It would not be my recommendation to do that, simply because while there are some folks that would not want their children to wear masks, we are building tolerance to masks. There's probably an equal number of staff, of students who are in school that families would not be comfortable if there were not masks. And I think by removing the mask, until we know more at least, would create an imbalance for those families, and they may elect then to leave the setting of in-person. So we want to be respectful to all the students. So if families are sending kids because of mask wearing, and now that gets lifted, and I say you don't have to wear your mask if you're 6 feet, that may make children feel uncomfortable in school, and we certainly don't want that. But again, as more comes out, you know, as you mentioned, I think someone mentioned earlier, the potential for a vaccine and all these things, and we hope we look back on this one day and it was, you know, something that we all learned a lot from and did our best. But right now, I don't have the confidence in I'm not at the level in my head to have the confidence to say, I can see an environment where if we're 6 feet, we're taking masks off yet. Could that shift? Yeah, when we learn more, you know, when we work with the health department and the medical community, and if that's the advice we get, we'll look at that. But if you're asking me the question tonight, I don't have the confidence to tell you I would recommend that.
Mr. Mangano, if I might.
Go ahead, Mark.
This has been a great session. It's interesting. The name of this committee was changed a couple of years ago from community engagement to community interaction. Interaction being exactly what we've seen tonight, with the public having, you know, a very, very open period to interact with the superintendent and with the board, with the other administrators on the phone in terms of their opinions, their suggestions, their questions. I mean, it is really interaction, exactly how we would hope to do it. What I would really like to do is thank any of the parents and or staff who might be in on this and watching it. Thank them for their participation in it, and make a recommendation to them that if they know other parents or other people who have some of the questions I'm sure came up tonight, the best thing to do is tell them, look, this has been recorded and it's going to be on our website. And sometime before Wednesday or sometime over the next couple of days, if they have questions, you know, the tough part is we have a board meeting with public comment. Public comment is different than public interaction. And this has been a great opportunity for the community to have interaction with our administrators. So one, I want to thank you and the other people on the committee for the opportunity to hear the questions, to pose the questions yourselves, and to answer them. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Mr. McGann, I want to follow up on one thing I said I would mention. You know, it was discussed, or I had a conversation, a wonderful conversation, by the way, but the timing of the letter Friday, I just want to be clear, that wasn't the typical, you know, Friday afternoon dump technique. I was trying to get that communication to the community as quickly as possible, and to give you enough time to respond. And holding it to Monday only would have taken 2.5 days away from you to think about what is good for your family. The reason why I did not want to release the communication, and I was in communication with the board during the week, certainly with Mr. Bongiovanni and Mr. Miller, our vice president, during the week. And why the reason for Friday was we were talking about this process with our pandemic response teams that are required to have in each of the schools. And I want to be clear because there was some confusion. The pandemic response teams did not design the plan or make the recommendation, but as we work through that, we wanted to share that with the pandemic response teams in all 12 schools. And this way they can have an opportunity to provide feedback and give suggestions to our thought process. and they did a great job with that. But the last pandemic response team scheduled a meeting. They were able to get their team assembled for Friday. So it wasn't until that team met that I released the letter. So it wasn't about, a late Friday afternoon thing. I certainly could have waited to Monday and released it, and no one would have ever thought anything negative about a Friday afternoon letter. But for me, that was the soonest I could get it out, and I wanted to do it, as quickly as possible. So if that, made anyone, concerned or anything, I mean, it wasn't like we posted it on the website and left it there. We emailed it to every parent and guardian in the school district right into their inbox. So I just wanted to be clear about that it was absolutely an effort to be transparent. And I hope that everyone understands that. Thanks, Ms. Mangano.
You're welcome. Okay, so this will be posted, right? And everybody will have access to the.
Quickly.
Yeah, we'll I was looking at Mrs. Gray. We'll start because you got to upload it or something. So
Yeah.
It may even be up tonight, but at the latest, it'll be up tomorrow by
Okay.
midnight.
Anybody else have any questions before we end the meeting?
Nope.
Okay,
All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Mangano. Wonderful job. Thank you.
thanks so
Thanks,
much.
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone. All right,
Have
good
a nice
night.
night. Bye-bye.